Well, hello everyone. We're pretty excited to bring this episode to y'all today. Uh, Basically, Aya's sharing recipes from home. Um, we're just passing along this body nourishment from us to you, and we're excited that we get to cook in the kitchen together. So, just to start off with some introductions, my name's Mia. I'm the LL for Aya, and our pronouns are she and her and hers.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm currently one of the peer facilitators for the AYA team this year. And the person you saw in the background is David. He is actually so graciously letting us use the Global Community Kitchen to do this for everyone. So thank you, David. Shout out. Yeah.
And before we really get started, we want to start off with a land acknowledgement. So if we could take a moment to get into that space, maybe take a breath. Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon is located within the traditional homelands of the Marys River or Ampnafu Band of Kalapuya. Following the Willamette Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in western Oregon. Today, living descendants of these people are part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde and the Confederate Tribes of Select Indians. Thank you for taking that moment with us. Do another deep breath. And with that, we're coming to y'all live from the Global Community Kitchen. Yeah, and what do we have today, Alex?
So to get started, I will be making Gallo Pinto with everyone. So I hope that all of you in your kits got some vegetables, and so you're just gonna need some rice, preferably white, but whatever you have works, and some beans. So if you've been keeping up with us on Instagram, maybe you came way more prepared than I am. I'm just using canned black beans for this, but you can use whatever beans you have. You can use pinto, kidney, black. Traditionally, this is a Nicaraguan dish. It's also found throughout Central America, and I'm personally Nicaraguan, so I say it's Nicaraguan, but there's some discourse of whether or not it's Costa Rican or Nicaraguan, but I think it's both. I will just be making the Nicaraguan version. So whatever beans you have, whatever rice you have, that's what you're gonna need to start getting out. You're also gonna need a little bit of cooking oil, whatever kind you have. I'll be using olive oil. And just for seasoning, salt or garlic powder, whatever's to your preference. Again, your preference, this is your rice. I want you guys to like it. So first things first is I just have a cup of rice, just white rice, only a cup because it's just me and Mia here. And I have 1/3 cup of olive oil. And these are the veggies that should be in your kit. It's green bell pepper and onion. That's what's traditionally used in this rice. And then I'm just going to be seasoning it with garlic and some salt. And for this rice, you're going to need 2 cups of water. So that's what I have here. And you're also going to need a pan with a lid. We can get started by preheating the pan. So just turn your stove on. Oh my gosh. Oh, does this work?
Oh yeah, I'll go get David.
Well, okay, so the stove, the gas is not on yet. So I guess now's that extra time for everybody to go get whatever they need, your oil, rice, beans. Like I'm literally just using these canned black beans. It's totally cheating, but if it works, it works. So whatever you guys have at home, you can just put it on like a medium high heat for now, because you're gonna want it to get really hot so that the oil and rice cook, because we're gonna fry this before we add the water or anything. So while we're waiting for that, you can see how many veggies you'd like to use. I probably won't be using all of this. This is kind of a lot for like 1 cup of rice, so I'm just gonna add my 1/3 cup of oil. So now that the oil's heating on your pan, you can go in and add your veggies. I'm kind of a baby, like I like to cut them in big chunks like this so that I don't have to eat the bell pepper, but everybody else in my family just straight up, it just eats the bell pepper. So if you're like me and you don't like bell pepper, take it out at the end. It's really just there for like aromatics and flavor. You're gonna wanna let it just kind of become a little translucent. And while that's happening, you can add just a little bit of salt. Now that those veggies are probably starting to smell, like you can smell the bell pepper and onion, that's when you want to add your rice. So at this point, like you want to be stirring your rice very like consistently. You don't want your rice to burn. You kind of just want it to turn a different color, and you'll see that when it starts. So I'm gonna turn the heat up just a little bit more on my stove, but you guys should use that cautiously because you don't want to burn your rice, like I said.
When would you typically have this dish, Alex?
So you can have it for any meal of the day. If you're having it with something, like for breakfast, for example, just like an egg on top of Gallo Pinto is a full meal. For lunch, whatever you're having, just that's on the side, and kind of the same with dinner. If you're eating it completely by itself, like I mentioned earlier, like we do, I know some Nicaraguan families, like my family included, does garnish it on top of like a tablespoon of like sour cream and then like salty white cheese. I think it's called tortilla cheese. So at this point, you'll see that the rice is starting to turn like a white color instead of looking translucent. And that's really what you want. And you want to start doing that until all of your rice basically turns this white color rather than translucent. And at this point, I'm gonna just season it a little bit with garlic powder. But again, totally up to everybody's own preference. So also at this point, you'll see that your rice is mostly turning white and browning. So this is when you're gonna wanna add those 2 cups of water. And you're gonna wanna be a little careful because it does get really steamy and crackly. So I would just evenly spread your rice across the pan and then add your water. Yeah. So this is really loud, so I hope everybody can hear me. But at this point, with the water in your pan, you're just gonna wanna make sure that there's no spots where there's not rice. And you are gonna wanna keep the heat where it's at. And the boiling that's happening is totally normal. And we're just gonna reduce the water until there's little holes in the rice, at which point we'll cover it with a lid. But this process, it will take about like 4 or 5 minutes for it to get the little holes in the rice. So this is really just where we want to be. And at the very end, we'll add the beans.
So we have our Gallo Pinto on the stove. The rice is cooking right now. We're waiting for it to get those holes that Alex has talked about. And in the meantime, we can start on the agua de jamaica. So if you have a recipe kit, or if you don't, if you have a recipe kit, you should have some jamaica flowers in there. They're purple and they're dried. If you don't have a recipe kit, you can get jamaica flowers at Winco. I know that. So you may be watching this and don't have the ingredient at the time. You can go ahead and pick some up at your own leisure, but we'll show you how to make it here today. And so basically what we're gonna wanna do right now is take about 8 cups of water to 2 cups of jamaica flowers. And what we're gonna do is just set this water to boil. We're not gonna add the flowers yet or anything. We're just gonna go ahead and set this on the stove for now. And again, that's 8 cups of water for that. Yeah, so what we're making right now is not like the final tea or final product, final agua. It's just going to be a concentrate. So we'll go ahead and dilute it down after we get this all ready to go. Really why I chose to do agua de jamaica for this recipe share was the fact that it's pretty multicultural. So agua de jamaica is most commonly, it's a big drink in Mexico, and that's where my family's from, and that's where my roots are. So I wanted to share something that honors that. Agua de jamaica is also pretty popular in Central America and Latin America. But what some people don't typically know is that these lovely hibiscus flowers, they are actually originally from Africa. So that just ties to some cross-cultural roots and how ingredients travel and how stories travel with them and recipes do as well.
So at this point, your rice for the gallo pinto should be like, so the bubbles in it should be starting to like do their own little thing, where you might be starting to see the beginnings of the little holes I was talking about earlier. But unless you're seeing actual like holes in the rice, you don't want to put your lid on yet. But if you are there and you feel comfortable in the fact that that's where you are in this process, then feel free to put your lid on and reduce the heat to a low heat. So on the stove, that's probably a 3. If you don't have it, it's just a low heat, because it's going to want to steam for at least 10 minutes.
This water is already starting to boil. So I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 cups of jamaica flour to the 8 cups of water. But if you do have the full 2 cups of jamaica, then you'll want to add that in. But that's what it looks like right now.
And it turns a really beautiful red color. And also at this point, this is what your gallo pinto rice is going to want to look like. So the holes in the rice, and you're going to want to lower your heat at this point and cover it, and then don't touch.
So we got 2 things on the stove so far. We got the agua de jamaica and we have the rice. I'm gonna go ahead and lower the heat. We're gonna, once that came to a boil, you're just gonna wanna let it simmer for a bit. Something I was meaning to ask you, Alex, was, I know you like to be in the kitchen a lot. How does that like bring you closer to your ancestral roots?
Yeah, I feel like cooking is one of the things that brings me like the most joy, and also one of my biggest comforts. And it makes me feel like happy that like traditions can be carried on like that. Like, I don't speak Spanish like most of my family does, but I also am one of the only ones that know how to cook. So I think it's like a trade-off. Whatever you identify with in your culture, whether that's the language, like visiting that place, learning the dance, the clothing, like mine is just cooking. So that's kind of how I incorporate like my culture in my everyday life.
Yeah, I also don't know like the language. I've tried to learn some dances, but I think for me too, it's the food. And I've like just started learning some recipes, so this is really exciting to be able to have this opportunity to share that with other people. Actually, something about this is when the flours start to drop to the bottom of the plate or the bowl. Is that when you know it's ready? And I can see that my flowers actually haven't dropped yet. So maybe we'll wait a little bit longer, but I also know this heat's pretty high, so I'm gonna turn it down.
There we go. Yeah, and since the heat's lowered, they're starting to drop.
Yeah.
So yours might also look like this.
Oh, it smells really good too. So I think it's actually ready for straining. You think so?
Yeah, our pot doesn't have a rubber thing on it. So if yours also doesn't, you're gonna want to make sure that you have something. All right, everyone.
Here we go. Hopefully it doesn't spill. Oh, this is quite nice. Yep. Ooh. Yeah. So what we have in this pot now is a nice concentrate of agua de jamaica. We're gonna go ahead and set this aside, let it cool for a little bit, and then we'll come back to it to make the final juice. What you want to do right now, though, while it's still hot, is add in a fourth a cup to a half a cup of sugar, depending on how you like it. So agua jamaica is typically bitter, but you can have it on the sweeter side, range from tart to sweet. Going from a fourth a cup of sugar to a half is about what it usually is. So I put sugar in this pot already. I put about half a cup because I want it sweeter this time. I'm just gonna stir it for a while, just to really incorporate the sugar throughout. Oh yeah, that looks good. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside, let it cool for a bit.
And once you've set that aside at home, this is when you're gonna want to just go check on your rice and just make sure that it's okay.
Oh, that looks good.
It does. So at this point, your rice should not be wet, and it should look like you can see the individual rice grains. It should also be a little steamy, and the lid of your pan should have like condensation on top. So it looks like it's almost done, but not quite done. So I'm going to turn the heat even lower and just let it hang out a little bit more.
This is what we have left over. It's kind of like more absorbed, less dry flours, and people would typically just throw this out, right? We have the concentrate, we're good. But something that I like to do as a snack, just sprinkle, grab some sugar here, and just go ahead and get like a pinch and sprinkle some on here. That's probably good. And so now we have, I'd say, some candied hibiscus flowers, and these are really good just as a snack.
So at this point for me, I'm gonna go ahead and turn my rice off, but keep the lid on. And you're just gonna want your rice to just slightly cool a little bit before we add the beans.
Yeah, and this would be a good transition to making some flour tortillas, homemade from scratch. This is something that I've recently learned. No expert, not a master by far. But I think I can make some good flour tortillas, and this is really something that I learned from my tia this past summer. So it feels special to me, and I want to share that out with everyone. My family really likes to eat the flour tortillas with sopapilla or sopa, which is just basically really simple tomato-based soup. My nana, my mom, my tias make it all the time, and it's really good to dip the tortilla in it with a little bit of butter. Ooh, yeah. But other than that, I really just love it with rice and beans. Like,
Yeah, well, good.
yeah, yeah, that's what we're having. So for the flour tortillas, I'm gonna want to have some flour out. And Alex is gonna help me roll these out later also. So what this is gonna take is about 2 good cups of flour. You wanna fill the cup all the way to the brim.
If you're at home and you have a kit, yours is actually already measured. And it has the salt included in it too. So hopefully it's a little bit easier.
Half a tablespoon of salt. So again, that was half a tablespoon of salt. I'd put like a heaping scoop because you want some flavor to the tortillas, and that's what gives it. I was gonna go, half a cup of water is next, so I'm gonna go grab that.
Do you want a little more salt?
No, I think that's okay. Okay, yeah. And after the half a cup of water, you're gonna want to put 3 tablespoons of oil in it, and that's really so this doesn't stick, helps bind things together. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little more. So what we have here, 2 cups of flour, half a cup of water, 3 tablespoons of oil, and half a tablespoon of salt. You want to go ahead, maybe you put gloves on, it's fine with your hands too when you wash them, but we're just gonna mix it. Might be a little difficult to mix at first. Might be crumbles all over the bowl, but that's okay. Yeah, so I see that there's some flour rimming the edge of the bowl here, and I really want that incorporated into the dough. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more water. And sometimes you just need to do that. If you added, yeah, no problem. If you added too much water, you can always add more flour. So as I'm working this dough, just wanna ask my co-host Alex, do you have any chef icons?
No, not really. I really like this Korean woman on YouTube though. Her username is like Mangchi, and it's just because like I've been really into like rice cakes lately, and she just like has all of the yummy Korean food that incorporates rice cakes. So I watch a lot of her stuff. Mostly like I'm like a YouTube chef. Yeah, like I like the stuff that people make on YouTube because it's kind of like this. Like you feel like a little personal, like you're in the kitchen with somebody's talking to you and explaining it step by step. Sometimes when you're reading something through like a cookbook or just you're reading the recipe, like it's just not the same. I don't know.
While we've been talking, I've just been kind of kneading the dough, so kind of just like pushing it out and in. So this is pretty good. This is solid for tortilla dough. You can round it out like this. You're just gonna plop it in the bowl, let it sit for about 10 minutes. And this is just to let the dough rest.
So at this point, your heat should have been off. And your rice is still nice and steamy, and it looks so good. I hope everybody's rice is going okay. Just kind of give it like a little stir at this point, and your rice should not be like sticky. It should be like fluffy, and you're just kind of like, I don't know, in my family we say we're fluffing it out. It should be shiny individual grain rices, and yeah, now it's gonna cool down, and then in a few more minutes the beans will be able to go in. Like my grandma would definitely have a different answer than I would, but for me what I do is now that the rice is fluffed and it's cooling down, I'm just gonna, later on, I'm gonna kind of spread the rice to one side of the pan and put the beans in and stir the beans around and kind of fry up the beans and then incorporate it into the rice.
Sounds good. In that case, we can go back to the agua de jamaica. It's been cooling now for about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, which is ideal. The agua de jamaica that was cooling, and what we're gonna do is take about 1/3 of this. So this is a concentrate right here in the silver cup. And we're just gonna pour it in a pitcher. Luckily this one has measuring stuff. So I would say that's about 1/3. So go ahead, fill it about this much if you have a pitcher. And basically now is the easy part. So you have this, and what you're gonna do is just fill it the rest of the way up with water and let it cool in your fridge. Typically I have this with ice. It's a cold drink, but feel free to drink it as you please. I think the longer it sits, the more the flavors come out. So you might just want to have this concentrate, fill it with water, you have your drink, set it in the fridge for a bit, then it's ready to enjoy in like less than an hour.
Yeah, and if you're like a really big tea drinker, you might have had hibiscus tea before. I think the really special thing about this is that the leaves are already kind of like dried and whole. So when you use them, like you're able to eat them after, which is the coolest part, because with other hibiscus teas that I've had, you know, you don't want to like rip open the little bag, the tea bag that the tea comes in.
Yeah.
But with these, you just get to eat them after.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm gonna set this aside for Alex and I later. The tortilla dough ball, about 10 minutes. And what you're gonna want to do now, oh yeah, this looks good. What you're gonna want to get out is some flour, a rolling pin if you have one. And if you don't have a rolling pin, that's okay. I've been using a wine bottle for the past few months in lieu of a rolling pin because I didn't have one at home. What we're gonna do is just break this up. I think this this amount of tortilla mix will make about 8 tortillas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 8 equal parts set out. Yeah, that's good. Is take these 8 equal parts and roll them into little balls. So roll it into a ball, and now we have like this little circle. This is not the final tortilla, by the way. This is just a start. So go ahead and do that to all 8 pieces.
And Mia is becoming a master tortilla roller.
Thank you.
So you guys are
yeah. So you're gonna take this. You have your flour on whatever space you're using, kind of evenly spread out. I'm also gonna dress this rolling pin with some flour so it doesn't stick. Then just gonna roll it out. Yeah. Turn it around. You can try to get it equal to all sides. The goal, I guess, is a circle, but really, it's fine, whatever shape it is. So yeah, the thing about rolling it out is that you want it to be pretty thin, like less than 1/8 of an inch kind of thin. This kind of fluffy thinness right here, like this is perfect. Not a circle, completely okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get a pan ready. Put it on I'd say medium heat, and you can add some oil to the pan or some butter. Like I said, I like my tortillas with butter, but I'm probably gonna use oil just for the purpose of this. So yeah, you don't want to put the tortilla on the pan just yet because you still need the chance for the oil to get hot. But all right, I'm gonna go ahead and roll the rest of these out. All right, I think the oil's hot. We're gonna go ahead, put it on the pan. Oh yeah. So those are on the stove now, and they'll just cook for maybe about 3 minutes or so on each side. Just set about 2 or 3 aside because we're gonna make a mock version of Buñuelos or sopapillas. And what the Buñuelos are, our version is gonna be we're gonna fry up the tortilla and put some cinnamon and sugar on it, and it's really good. So not only do we have a great side dish, the tortilla itself, but we also can have a dessert. So just set about 2 or 3 of the tortillas you had made aside, however many you want for the dessert part.
And your tortillas may look like they're puffing up a little bit, but that's okay. They're just pockets of yummy.
So go ahead, check out what it looks like. Oh my God, this is beautiful. So we have these nice brown spots. That's when you know it's ready. It's like good to flip. And I'm kind of frying these tortillas a little bit with oil. That's not necessary. I just like it like that. Okay, so what you're catching right now is the lag time, the time it takes to actually cook. You know, things are frying, takes time, the vent's loud. Just gotta say, but bringing over the camera to Alex's station, and they'll be showing us how to put the beans in the Gallo Pinto.
So we're just gonna scoop our rice to one side, because like I said before, I'm a one pot kind of gal, and I don't really like dishes. And this is the point where you wanna get your can opener if you're having canned beans like me, and open it up and make sure that you are draining the beans. I already went ahead and did that, but this is the time for you guys out there. I am just gonna take a little bit of oil in my non-heated pan at this point and drizzle it just a little bit more on the side with no rice. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn my stove back on medium heat to get it kind of nice and hot again. And at this point, I'm gonna take my beans, because my pan is heating up, and I'm gonna dump them in on that oil. And so you're just gonna, again, season just the beans to your liking. I'm gonna go over by Mia's station and grab the salt, and I'll be right back. And so I'm just gonna do a little less salt than I did with the rice. And then you're gonna go, and your beans should start like popping. Like they're gonna seem kind of like boiling-ish. That's just like the rest of the bean juice that wouldn't come out of the can leaving. So that's really what that is. And don't worry about the rice on the other side. It won't burn, and we're not going to do this half process for very long. So when you start to see your beans kind of popping up a little bit like it is here, you're just going to give it another stir on just the bean side and let it work up to that again. And when you feel that it's nice and hot and that your beans are starting to kind of pop again, you're gonna mix it. So at this point, that's what it looks like here. So now I'm just gonna scoop it into each other, fold it into each other, and incorporate the beans into the rice. And like I said before, your rice is gonna change color depending on the bean that you use. Most other Nicaraguans that I know, which admittedly is not a lot, also use black beans. But if you're using pinto beans or kidney beans at home, which again is totally fine, your rice is just gonna kind of emulate the color of the bean, just like this. That just kind of gets it a little crispy on the bottom, because again, we don't really want a lot of moisture in there from the beans. And once you feel like you've paused for a good enough time, go ahead and just mix it again and kind of do the same folding. And then go ahead and flatten that out a bit without actually mushing the beans or the rice. And then we're just gonna repeat the process about 2 more times, at which point, your rice and your beans should still be separate. They should not be mashed. Nothing should be burning, hopefully.
So right now, what I just did was add quite a bit of oil this time. And this is for the mock buñuelos that we're making. And we just heat up a lot of oil, put the tortilla in the pan. This is really quick. You want it on high heat for this. This is for the dessert part. Flip it. And once this is done, we'll go ahead and drain it and then coat it with some sugar and cinnamon.
And you can see that some of your beans at this point might be splitting, which is totally fine and normal. That tells you that your beans are getting all nice and cooked. And so my heat is actually off, but I'm continuing to stir because I don't want the bottom to burn. So we're gonna stir it just for another 30 seconds so that no burning happens.
So just wanted to show you all real quick. This is what the Buñuelo type dessert is gonna look like. That looks like more like a fried tortilla. We're just letting it drain in these paper towels right now. Gonna let it cool, and then we're gonna go ahead and put it in a plastic bag and shake it around with some cinnamon and sugar. It'll be a really tasty treat.
You're good to go. That's basically it for the Gallo Pinto. It's all done now. Feel free to dress it with whatever you like. If that's an egg, something with your dinner, something with your lunch, or if it's by itself with some sour cream and cheese on it, whatever floats your boat. It's really good. It's also good just plain like this.
So we're gonna take you guys to another station, somewhere the fan is not, where we're getting ready to plate the final things. Yes, that looks great.
And again, I told you guys earlier that I am a baby and pick out my bell peppers, but I heard from other people that it's good in there, so you are fine to leave it in.
So right here, have a bag with some cinnamon, some sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and right. Yeah. So for some final plating, we're gonna go ahead and throw this all together. This is what it should look like. Ooh, it's got a nice coat of cinnamon and sugar. Hopefully you can see that. Nice. Got a tortilla, Gallo Pinto, nice pan of Buñuelo, and some Agua, jamaica, and you got yourself a pretty darn good meal.
I'm so excited to eat it.
Yeah, me too.
I hope you're excited to eat it at home too, and we hope you had a good time with us tonight cooking.
Yeah. I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to the HRWGC for helping us get ingredients and all the support. Thank you to the Aya community. Thank you, Alex. Oh my goodness, thank you. Yeah, you're really good at explaining, and a really good cook too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, thank you to KBVR for putting this out there. I want to shout out Shina also from the Aya team.
Yes, thank you,
Yes.
Shina. You support us so much, and we literally could not have had this night without you.
Yes.
So thank you.
So much love. Sending it out. Hope you feel it. Hope you have a good meal. Hope your body feels a little more nourished. Woke Fest, which stands for Women of Color Fest, events happening later. March 4th, we have an open mic night. If you're interested in that to support, please come on out. Check out our Facebook and Instagram for details. And then on March 5th, we have a Collectively Creating Futures workshop where we'll be looking at envisioning together. It's a space for women of color and women-aligned folks of color to come in a space and feel the power of imagining the future that we would like to see and how we can get closer to creating that future together. With that, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoy your meal.